Okay, guys, let's get started, right? Today I'm going to talk about finishes. And the rug ain't done till your rug is finished, right? And I know some of us have rugs that are rolled up, stuck in a closet, and not finished. So the main thing to keep in mind is that the best finish is the finish you will do, okay? Because if you won't do it, that rug isn't seeing the light of day. So let's get those rugs finished. It's not hard, and I'm going to show you some of the simplest ways, and I'm going to show you some more complicated ways. And I'm going to tell you along the way why some are better than others, okay? So let's go down to the table. And I grabbed this little piece mainly because I had hooked this for somebody in a workshop. I don't remember who it was. And I wanted to show how to make like the glow around a moon, look different. And she had a couple different options. I don't remember what option she went with. Doesn't really matter. But what it gave me is a nice straight edge where we can simulate that this is the edge of a rug. Okay, so I need you to stretch your imagination and assume that this is the edge of a hooked rug. The simplest finish is simply this. Fold it back, fold that edge under, stitch it down. Now, if you can't do this finish, I'm shocked. I don't know why. Let me take a look at this really quick. It really bugs me when this thing goes in and out of focus like that. And eventually I'll have my other camera set up so that it won't be doing this, but this is not supposed to be autofocusing. This is not an easy thing to troubleshoot in the middle of a live. I guess I can't troubleshoot it, okay? So just fold the edge in. I would still zigzag this edge so it doesn't unravel because unfinished rugwort can get very ravelly very quickly. So zigzag that edge, fold it under, and then fold it again. How big you choose to do it is completely up to you. The downside is that this is going to create thickness on the back, okay? So you're going to have nothing here, and then it's going to kind of bump up because you've got 2 layers of rug warp and then 1 layer of rug warp, and then over here you've got nothing. So it's going to create that dip, and that dip makes me absolutely crazy. I hate that on my rugs. I don't like seeing it because you can see it from across the floor. You can feel it when you step on it. I think it makes it a bit of a trip hazard, but quite frankly, if this is the only way you'll finish, please do this, okay? The downside, I'm going to be talking about this a lot. The downside is the knife fold edge, the place where the backing is first folded back tight on itself is right at the base of the loops. That is the downside, okay? What happens with a knife fold edge? This is a knife fold edge. This is where it's going to rot. And it's going to rot if you walk on it, if you don't walk on it, if you put it on the wall. Unless you can stop time, this is where it's going to rot. Okay, and there ain't a darn thing you can do about it. So you just have to sort of bear with it and put up with those. Okay. After this one, I'm going to show you now my favorite finish. Okay. My favorite finish is the fold forward finish. And I have an article on my website that shows you exactly how to do this. If you're a member of the Rug Hooking Journey, you can go into the basics course, go to finishing, and there's a PDF there that you can print out and have by your side as you're working. Otherwise, you're just going to have to look at the article that's on the web page and just sort of have your computer or your phone nearby and scroll through it because the PDF is in the membership only. I no longer do this extra zigzagging. That is something that Rug Hooking Magazine recommended. I did it religiously from the beginning. I no longer do that. I'm not exactly sure why I was doing it. I was just following Rug Hooking Magazine's instructions. And now I think what I've done is just perforated the edge of the rug. So I don't do that anymore. But there's instructions there on how to do all the finishing, how to do the corners. There's instructions there about the corner trick. That'll get you a nice corner. The important thing is you fold it once. There's the knife fold edge. That's 3/4 of an inch away from the actual loops. When you fold it the second time, this fold here is supported by 2 layers of rug warp in between. If you're using a thinner backing, such as linen, you'll have to lay in a thin cording. And that cording is going to be as thin as like a iPhone charger cord. Okay, not a 1/4 inch diameter, just a real thin one. And you would put that in there and then fold it over to give it that little bit of a roll there, so it doesn't squish flat, because linen will squish flat. Once you're done and you've got that all stitched down, folded once and then folded a second time, you're going to whip it. Now, what I like about this finish is from the back, it's very, very clean. There is nothing on the back. I mean, look at this one. It's not whipped here, but there's no other junk or anything to collect dust or dirt, or bug eggs for that matter. There is just the whipping that you have to do. There's no rug tape. All you need is a needle and thread to baste it, and then a larger needle and yarn to do the whipping. That's the only materials. I like this finish. Here's another example of it. This is the back, and this is what it looks like on the front. It is a beautiful finish. Very hard wearing. This is really hairy. This is on my desk every day, all day. I did not hook this. This was hooked for me by my friend Cindy Goolsby out of Texas. And I use this as a coaster under my thermos, and it has the fold forward finish. Nice and clean on the back. There's no change in thickness. It doesn't suddenly get higher at the edges. Okay, that's what I like about the fold forward. And there's lots of information on the internet. So the things that I like about it is that you don't need any extra supplies. Keep a sample over here so you can see it as I'm walking through it. It's very clean on the back. The knife fold edge is 3/4 of an inch away from the loops, which is good from a conservation type process. What's bad about it? It's time consuming. It's going to take you a little bit of time, but it is very, very long lasting, and it's easy to repair. So if the yarn begins to wear, all you have to do is get some more yarn and whip it. It's a little bit different with some of the other finishes. There's more things that you have to do to make it to repair it, to make it last a little bit longer. So the other things that you can do with that fold forward prep, okay, so this is prepared exactly the same way for whipping, except this time I'm crocheting with cut strips. And when I crochet with a cut strip, I'm crocheting with a cut strip that's like this. This is 45 feet long. This comes out of an entire bolt. And I need a nice long strip like that because I don't like weaving in the ends. Okay, so a nice long strip like this will give you a good run before you have to change it out and add another piece on there. You can crochet with wool strips like this, or you can crochet with yarn. Okay, the other thing that you can do is you can whip with the cut strips. I don't use the Jewel wants to be, I don't know if you can see Jewel, she's laying down there on my rug. The cut strips, the problem with them is that you're constantly weaving in an end. I don't like them. I think that makes the corners clunky, but try it. See if you like it. If you notice, I've got little small samples of finishes, and you'll see more as we go along. Work these up for yourself. Don't do a finish on your rug for the first time on your rug. Do it on a scrap piece, okay? Oh, and this crocheted finish here is actually better on oval and round rugs because the crochet tends to be a little bit bigger up at the outer edge than it is on the inner edge. It doesn't completely cover on a straight line. So it's a little dicey from that, unless you really crowd it, and then you're going to end up with a ripple. Okay, so it's not a good cover. The next finish that I use the most is the finish that I use for my stair risers. Okay, this is one of my first stair risers. And if you notice, when you look straight down, you don't see the finish. Like on this piece, you can see the finish. Here, you see nothing. It completely disappears. The reason for that is when you are hooking a stair riser, you only have so much space. And if I'm going to give up this plus this from the design, it makes my whole stair riser smaller. So I didn't want to do that. So what I did instead was to look for a finish that would accommodate that without taking up space. Okay, and this is the finish. Imagine if this area was hooked. The edging is simply turned to the back, and then I hold a piece of rug tape in behind, and then I whip that little tiny bit that shows, this little tiny bit that shows, so that when you look at it from the side, you don't see anything. Okay, now the problems, okay, because there's plenty. The knife fold edge is right at the base of the loops. Okay, this was a stair riser that can be hooked in just a couple of days. Not a huge investment in time or in my life. This is something that I'm okay with this if this disappears in 50 to 100 years. Not so much for a big rug. Okay, this is not the finish I'm going to be using on my room size rug. You can betcha on that. I also don't like the rug tape. Okay, so the rug tape we can get, and this is a sampling of the different kinds of rug tape that you can get. Usually our only choice is color. There's not a whole lot of difference in variety. The problem is you have to process this rug tape by cooking it in soap and then dumping out the water and then cooking it in more soap and dumping out the water. Because if you don't, what happens is this dye will end up bleeding onto your rug as soon as it gets wet. Now, we don't plan on our rugs getting wet. I had 2 of them that were on the floor and got wet just this week. I did not plan on that, but they were fine. Nothing bled. Mainly because either A, I don't use rug tape, or if I do, I make sure I process the daylights out of it. Okay. Rug tape also shrinks a lot. So rather than throwing it in the washer, I'm going to do a 2-for-1. I'm going to remove the dye by putting it in a saucer with some soap and cooking it. It's also working on shrinking the fibers. The problem is once I've got that done, I've got to rinse it. I've got to hang it up to dry. I've got to iron it. And then I've got to sew the frickin' thing down. Okay. And it's not just a simple matter of sewing it down because I've turned that backing to the back, right? I want to make sure that I stitch that down. If I don't, it's in there and it's available for friction. I want to reduce the friction. So you need to sew that down. Once you sew that down, you need to sew this down. That's in addition to the whipping that you did around the edge. So it's not the simplest finish by any stretch of the imagination. It takes as long as the fold forward. The only advantage, at least in my mind, is that it doesn't show. Okay. It takes no space. And it's good if you are viewing it from the side. So in our old house, these stair risers, the stairs came down and turned in an L. and you could see the sides of these. So these were beautifully finished, and you never saw the white of the backing. So that's why I used that particular finish. Okay. Pillows. How do you finish a pillow? This is my favorite method for finishing a pillow, is to sew on some sashing, something at least about 3 inches wide. And you can sew it on like this on a butt edge, which is how, quite frankly, I do almost all of my pillows, because it's faster. And quite frankly, you don't really see that once it's done. You can do a mitered edge if you want. That's just more work and a little bit more fiddly. But the good news is you simply hook up to it, and then you take another piece. Let's say this is your backing piece. You put your backing piece down, and now you simply sew with the sewing machine. Voila. Turn it inside out, pack it, slip stitch that opening shut, and your pillow is complete. You can do a pillow easily in an afternoon. Okay. Oh, the other reason I like this kind of finish on a pillow is because when it is setting, I'm going to change the camera on here for just a minute. When you have it sitting on a couch and this part of it goes underneath it, right? You can still see 100% of the hooking. If your hooking goes all the way to that center seam, it's going to hide quite a bit of your hooking. And that's going to distort the image when you're looking at it. Okay, so for that reason also I like the sashing. Okay, so now let's talk about the one that I call the best finish. Now, is it a finish I'm willing to do? Nope. I am not willing to do it. It is way too much work. But if you have an old rug of grandma's or mom's that is sitting in the closet because it's unfinished, this is the finish I would do. If you have rugs on burlap, this is the finish that I would do. It's one of those where there's zero knife fold edge. So let me break it down for you. It's basically a piece of cording, and this cording is cording that you can get at Amazon or even Walmart. This is from the Walmart page. Okay, this says out of stock. It's out of stock online, but you can find this exact packaging in the store, because when I need it, that's where I go to get it. So you can get that at Walmart. So pretty simple, easy peasy there. And you're going to take it and put it underneath the backing and fold this forward, or fold it towards the back. Then you have to take rug tape that you have shrunk down, right, and prepared. This one originally started out as black. It ends up at the sort of lighter medium gray. And then put that down and then whip through all of it. And then you have to sew down that backing so that it doesn't move around. Then sew this down. And you still have a little bit of a thickness, not as bad as some of the other ones, because it's only one thickness of the rug warp. But you're still going to have a little bit more thickness at the edge than you do with, say, the fold forward, because the fold forward is going to be absolutely flat. Plus, it has to do with how the backing is. Okay, so the backing on the fold forward comes out and then it rolls forward, right? This backing has to come over, go up and over the cording, and then go back under. So that edge doesn't lay quite as nicely as it does with the fold forward. But for preservation, and if you're repairing an antique rug, particularly if you're dealing with burlap and then you've lined it with a full layer of linen, this is the finish you're going to want to do. That's the finish you're going to want to do. Show finish. This one, the only reason I call it a show finish is because somebody in Canada called it that. So That's what I've started calling it. I don't know why they call it that. I don't know. Someone said it's because that's a finish we use when we put our rugs in a show, or is it a show finish because the wool shows? I don't know. So if here's your hooking, you simply take a piece of wool and stitch it down. I mean, if I was doing it, I would stitch it down and then hook up to it. And then cut off your backing, zigzag it, and then fold that over and stitch it. Is it lumpy bumpy on this edge? Yeah. It is. It is. Nothing still compares to the flatness of the fold forward finish. But there is no knife fold edge. That's going to be the best part about this particular finish. And let me see. I've got, I think, one more what I call normal finish, and then we'll get into some unusual ones. This one, for lack of a better term, I've called it the Michigan finish because this is what a lot of people in Michigan do. I don't like it particularly on a small piece because I don't know if you, it doesn't really show up in the camera, but this is almost like a bowl, okay, where it comes out, it's really thick on the sides, and then it kind of scoops back down in. And that's mainly because it's got a piece of backing, it's got a piece of wool that goes out and around the cording, and then another piece of wool. And some people will even turn under that piece of wool. So if you do all that, you're going to end up with a huge amount of thickness on the edges. This is the finish that I used for the Village of Pemberville. It's not the best finish because you've got a knife fold edge right there. It's going to rot right at the base of the loops, not 3/4 of an inch away. It's going to rot right there. And I don't care if you hang this on the ceiling, okay? It is not going to be where, it is not going to prevent it from rotting. The very nature of a textile being folded is what causes the rotting. And like I said, for lack of a better term, I call this the Michigan finish. But what you can do is that little piece. I don't see it offhand, but you can prepare this cording in advance. You can, roughly a 3-inch strip wrapped around, and then you can stitch it down with a zipper foot. That's about the only part of finishing a rug, other than the zigzagging of the edge, that I would do with a sewing machine. You should do all, in my opinion, you should do all your sewing on your rug by hand because it's easily reversible. So in case someone needs to reverse it, they can. Oh, here's that little piece that I was looking for. So you can prepare this in advance and then attach this to the rug. The girls in Michigan were folding it back and sewing it like this. Holy cow, to get that white edge to disappear, what a freaking nightmare. So what I did is I just put it like this and I stitch it by hand in this ditch where the stitching is, and then I fold it back and then I hook some more in there. And it worked out beautifully. And it was a whole lot easier. Okay, what else? Fringe. You can put fringe on the edge of a piece. So here's my fringe samples. I did this one. A friend did this one. Some people will use the actual threads from the backing to create their fringe. The problem with this is in what this sample shows is how to add extra threads because there's not enough threads to give you a nice healthy fringe. So she added more threads in here to make that fringe. This is cotton. This is going to get dirty super easy. Okay. I didn't want that. Plus, this color did not work for me on what I was doing. So I went and got some wool yarn. This is just an acrylic because I wanted to do the sample piece with it. And what I ended up coming up with is, if this is your hooking, I did a little band of needlepoint. You can pick out whatever needlepoint stitch you want. And then I thought, well, I'll leave a blank space for the cording, and then I'll pick up over here and do another equally sized band of needlepoint, with the idea that I could then fold this under and stitch it with the needlepoint yarn, almost like another row of needlepoint, and it blends away and you can't see it. And I'll show you on my actual rug in just a minute. But what I found was that when I tied the fringe on, that wasn't enough to hide it. So then I had to whip that area where the cording was and then tie my fringe on. Now, the reason for going through all that and for adding this cording is sold in the drapery department. This is Traverse cord, and it's small, it's hard, and it's very intense. But what I saw was my rug hooking teacher's rug get picked up by the fringe and rip because it was held on by one thread of the backing. So it was like, I ain't doing that. So I knew that if I put cording in there and then tied the fringe on around that cording, you could pull on that as hard as you want, and chances are you're going to rip the yarn before you're going to break the backing, and that is perfect. I can repair the yarn. I cannot repair that backing very easily. So let me show you what that looks like on an actual rug. So here's the rug. This is incredibly time consuming, but it was very rewarding, particularly if you like needlepoint, and I don't mind it. I wanted this little area. They call that on a woven rug, they call that the kilum, I think, if I remember that right. And then on the back, it looks just as good. And you cannot tell where that is or how it's sewn down or anything, because it's the same needlepoint on the back as it is on the front. And then I use some of my macrame skills from the 1970s to do the rest of the fringe there. So that's how I like to do a fringe on a rug. Okay, one more method. Braiding. Where's my braid? Here we go. So you can, why did my camera change? So braiding is just like braiding your hair. There are little things, little gadgets that you can buy that'll help you to keep these folded. You can also just go through and do some basting like I did here, if that helps. You can use safety pins to kind of hold your place as you're going. It's not the easiest thing to do, but it's not incredibly difficult. But what you do is to simply take this and lace it onto that. That's all there is to it. So the same way you would lace the next row of braiding to this, you would lace this to that. And it's all in the braiding instructions. So that's what you want to look for, is braiding instructions. But it ends up being, if you size your strips the right size, they'll end up being about the same thickness. Now, if they don't, okay, that was wide cut strips. This has thinner strips. This is done with a number 3 cut. This was very thin in comparison to the braiding. So what I ended up doing is I ended up padding it up. I cut out layers of wool. I think part of it was an old army blanket. I did a little bit of some quilt batting, and then I simply, I didn't defuzz the other side. But then I put wool on the back. But think about this. You could do another hooked piece of the same size and shape and put it there, because the braiding is perfectly reversible. Okay. And for me, this was a required piece through Teacher's Workshop. I did not want to spend the money to frame it, and I needed to make it a little bit bigger. So it was legitimately a rug. So that's what I did with that. Okay. Oh, one other. This one. I will never, ever, 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 ever do more than what is right here. Okay. This is a finish that some people were doing, and it looks very interesting, and you can actually do it with different size cording. And this is way too big, but then you would simply fold forward the finish and then whip the next edge. And then you've got these little raised things here. This just seems to me, it doesn't add that much to the rug. And it is so labor intensive to pull it up, push it down, pull it up. It's not like whipping where you're doing, like a whole pass around. This way you come up and then you go down. That's half a pass, right? And then you got to come back up and then go back down. Holy cow. So there are examples of this out on the internet, but you got to be somebody special to have the patience to do that. I do not want to do that. Okay. And then finally, I'm going to talk about labels, but I'm going to see what you guys got about as questions first. Let me go back. Why is it cutting it off? I can't see your whole comment. Hold on. Let me see if I can move that. There we go. Do I use wool yarn when I whip the edge? Yes. I like to use 100% wool yarn. My favorite brand is Cascade 220. Relatively inexpensive, available at almost every good knit shop. Okay. Just ask them if they have Cascade 220. Chances are they do. Okay. The problem is I no longer carry my favorite color. So I buy Cascade 220 and I dye it. So that works. Is the stair riser pattern available? Yes, it is. I've got quite a few different ones. This one is called Queen Anne Rose. It is available on my website. You can get it in linen or rug warp. If you really, really, really want it on monk's cloth, you can't buy it from me. You got to go to Chris Miller and buy it there. That's the difference. What is a stair riser finish called? There's not an official name for it. I call it the Barb Carroll finish because that is the finish. She showed me that finish. So I call it in the studio, I call it the Barb Carroll finish. Sonia is saying, do you sew washing to pillow before you hook? Do I wash the wool that I sew to the pillow before I hook it? Yes. Yeah, because I'm just grabbing it off my shelf. So yes, I would do that. What is this thing doing? Randy says, can you show us a pillow with what you are talking about? Yeah, I can show you. These are hairy because the cat likes to sit on the chair that these sit on. But I'm sure some of you have animals. This is Jackson's pillow. Let me get rid of that comment. Oh, it went away by itself. Okay. So when it's sitting, it sits like this, right? Because otherwise, all of the hooking from here to here would be hidden by the pillow. So when this sits on whatever it is sitting on the couch, or in my case, a chair, you can still see 100% of the hooking. And the same with this one. Although if you live in a household with animals, don't use a dark solid because it shows everything. But the same thing here. It doesn't hide any of the hooking when it's sitting on where it needs to sit. So that's what I would do with that. Can you use, say, a 1.5-inch strip of wool in place of rug tape? You can. It's thicker, so it exacerbates that whole thickness on the edge with the rug tape. But yeah, you can use, and it's more expensive. This stuff I'll have to look up, but I'm not sure what I sell it for. I sell it for, I think, like $1/4 a yard, and wool would be much more expensive than that. What about using a glue gun for pieces for hanging? Now, what you want to do with your hook stuff is up to you. I would never, ever, ever use glue of any kind on my hooking. For one thing, it's irreversible. You cannot take it off, okay? It doesn't take that long with the needle and thread to do what it is you need to do. Don't go short. In half the time, the glue doesn't stick to the wool because the wool is not that kind of fiber. So it's not going to give you the solution that you want anyways. Lana is saying, doing a 2x3 on linen, no sewing machine. Am I in for a whole lot of hand sewing before finishing? I have a 6-inch leeway around the whole rug with the edge duct taped. Yeah, well, I pulled this out because it was in my finishing bundle. This is what I recommend if you don't have a sewing machine and you're getting ready to hook. I don't personally like duct tape, mainly because I don't like the way it feels on my arm. So this is what I would do instead of duct tape. I would take and fold the edge over and then just do some big stitches like this. What I would do if I was getting ready to finish is I would do exactly the same thing, except I would not fold it over. I would just leave it flat and I would do this kind of a stitch on it. All you need to do is to hold it together so it doesn't unravel until you get it finished. Okay, so do this kind of stitching, and it can be in big old purple thread like this if you want. It doesn't matter. You don't have to bite down quite as far. You could go down maybe half as far, but it doesn't have to be fancy. And just stitch on it like this. This will hold it together. That's all you need to do, and this won't take you long at all. It'll probably take you about as long as it does to get the sewing machine out, plug it in, do all the zigzagging, put it away. You could probably have it done like this in the same amount of time. Sue is asking, do you finish with a butt end or invisible with your braid? I did, when I did this rug, these ends are all butted, meaning it's all one complete circle. They don't bypass, it's not a spiral. It's one complete circle. But you can decide what you want to do. It wasn't the easiest thing to do, and I did them all in the same day because I was afraid I'd forget how to do it. So I just powered through it. I had all my instructions laid out, and I powered through it. Move some of this over. I don't know why I'm having so much trouble seeing this. Are these examples shown in more detail in any other lessons? The fold forward, yes. That is out there for the public on Cindy Gay Rug Hooking, and that is just cindygayrughooking.com/FF. And that'll get you to those instructions. If you're a member of the Rug Hooking Journey, go into the basics lesson, look for finishing, and there's a link to that article that I just mentioned. And there's also a PDF that you can print out, put holes in it, put it in a notebook, whatever you do with your rug hooking reference information. The other examples, I'll be doing short, little, quick videos. I might do them at the beginning of one of these lessons, or I'll just go on like at 10 o'clock in the morning. I'll do it live. But then unfortunately the video will disappear because it'll end up inside the Rug Hooking Journey. Which method do you end your braid? Butt? Yes, I do a butt joint on the braid. Sonia sent, I meant, do you sew sashing to the pillow before hooking? I sew it to the pillow before I get to the outer edge. I don't do it in advance, and there's complete and excruciatingly detailed instructions on my website. Just go to cindygayruggcooking.com, go all the way to the bottom, put in pillow as your search term, and it'll come up. I do all of that by hand because a pillow is small. And for me, it's more work to get the sewing machine out than it is to just sit there and do a quick little back stitch. What about using a glue gun for things you hang, Lily? No, I didn't miss it. I just hadn't gotten to it yet. I would not use glue, but that's me. You can decide what your rules are for your information. Glue does all kinds of weird things that you don't expect it to do. And quite frankly, it doesn't stick to wool. It just doesn't. How wide a strip do you use for crocheting around? Did you say 3-cut? No. These are probably 5 or 6. Yeah, no, it's not a 3-cut. 3-cut would be much smaller. It's probably about a 5. But experiment with that. Figure out what works for you. What size was the hook design on the pillow and overall dimensions of the pillows? I don't know. What I did is I created my design. I added the sashing. And then I stitched it up. And then I stuff it with what do they call that? Fiberfill, polyfill, whatever that's called, that you use to stuff animals. That way I don't need a special pillow form. I don't want a pillow form to control my design. I want my design to decide what it's going to be. It's a lot less stressful that way. I need to order Skywool. Can you give me the number? No, but I can give you the website. Go to becauseofyou.com. I need to create something I can throw up on the screen for that. Because of you. Let me do a quick, where do I do that? Right there. Becauseofyou.com. It's my partner in crime, Kim Hurt. She does a great job. I personally worked with her on following my instructions on that. It looks just like mine, and she's got it in stock. So go to becauseofyou.com. There should be a link on my page going to her page. I will double check that when I'm done here. But it's not a number. It would be on my webpage. So that's that. Lily says, I just bought a serger. Can I use that for edging so it doesn't unravel? Sure, if you've got it, use a serger. I just don't happen to have one. So I can't use a serger because I don't got one. Oh, I'll take that back. I do have one. It needs a needle and I have to figure out how to use it. Thank you, Star, but I have to figure that out yet. But yeah, use what you got. Use what you've got. We're trying to make this too hard. We are thinking that you need all these special irons and special cutters and special this and special that. You don't. In the olden days, they would take a nail, stick it in the fire and bend it and twist it and turn it into a hook and shove a piece of wood on it. And that was what they used to hook with. We get pretty highfalutin, for sure. Sue is saying, do you teach that method? I'm not sure what method that is. You might have made that comment while I got it. Norma, what do I use to stuff your pillows? I just go to Joann's and I get stuffing. There might be some people who are more in depth with that. I think it's called fiberfill. It's just this loose stuffing that you shove in there. In a pinch, I've taken quilt batting and ripped it apart. Although that's kind of more expensive, but just simple fiberfill. Elizabeth says, sorry for basic questions. Where are you located? I am in Northwest Ohio. As a beginner, can you finish a wall hanging the same as you would finish a rug just for the practice? Yeah, I finish everything. I do the same way. It's just a matter of what you do with it then later to hang it. And I have videos on how to hang rugs. You just got to look for those. There's a couple on YouTube, and the rest are inside the Rug Cooking Journey. Rennie says, just order Gem Tack glue to add a few crystals to a finished project. Will this glue stick to wool? You're going to have to test it. And if it sticks now, will it stick 5 years from now? I don't know. You'll just have to try it. I have not found anything that sticks long term to wool, period. So you might get lucky. I've never tried that product, so maybe you could figure that out. Do you teach the braid method you use? I don't, as a matter of course. If someone comes to the studio for a workshop and that's what they want to learn, I would definitely teach it. I would have to freshen up on the budding method because that's quite complicated and it's not something I could pull out of my hat and do in a minute's notice. But I'm sure once I looked at my notes, I could pop that together. But that would be taught in an in-person type workshop or in my new online small people workshop. Serger, new to me, but it was a gift from the hubby. Yeah. Yay. Gotta love that. Okay, so I'm to the end of the comments. Thank you all for being here. Now you can see why I couldn't explain how to do each and every one of these methods because it took me 45 minutes just to introduce them to you. I will be doing more in-depth videos on each one of those. Some will be very long, some will be short. I have plenty of video on the fold forward one. So all that information is on that webpage that I told you about, the CindyGayRugCooking.com/FF. And you can see that there. Sherry says, why did you use the Michigan finish on your Village of Pemberville? It had to do with matching that beige wool. It was impossible to match it with any yarn or anything of that sort. So I just took more of that fabric, created it, stuck it on there. That was the main difference. Elizabeth is saying, what's the difference between online class and journey class? I'm going to have to guess what you're asking me, but the Rug Cooking Journey is a set of tutorials that have been recorded and are there for you to watch at any time. The online rug cooking workshop that I'm going to get going is a live experience like this. It'll be done in Zoom. We'll all have our microphones open. You can talk freely as if you're all sitting in a class. You'll get to know the people in your class. We will follow your project and you will work with the project and you'll be able to get what you would get from a regular in-person workshop. So yeah, and you're good to go. Oh, I said something about labels. I sure did. Let me throw in labels real good. Okay, ready. Sugar Small People Workshop. I am under 5 feet. Do I qualify? Yes, you do. And Linda, thank you for the reminder. Tomorrow is the wool sale, 2 p.m. You have to register in advance and then you have to download the Zoom app. So if you've already using Zoom and if you've already registered, you're good to go. But if you haven't, you need to pop over there and register. And then I'll be sending out the link in the morning. Labels. Okay. My favorite way to do labels, because the job ain't done until you got a label on the back. Okay. My favorite way to do labels is to print them on fabric like this. I have a template. I'm not even sure what app it's in. It might be in Word. I'll have to look it up. I always have to look for it every time. I just thank you for Mac for creating the little spotlight search thing because it makes it easy to find things. And then I put in the year that I hooked it, the name of the pattern, who it was designed by. It was hooked by me, my address, my town. It's 100% wool fabric on blank bit backing, and then a couple sentences of what the rug is about or why I did it. If I hook it in a workshop, I'll put where the workshop was, Sauter Village, 2020 with this teacher, blah, 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 that kind of thing. And that's the way it goes. So once you've got that, how you print it is you go to Hobby Lobby or Joann's or Amazon. Okay. So those of you in the Rug Cooking Journey, when I post this replay, I'll post a link on Amazon to the ones I recommend. And it's just a package of printable fabric. And that's what it says right on there, printable fabric. The quilters use it all the time for printing photographs and images. And you print it out on that fabric. You follow the instructions because you've got to like rinse it and iron it. And there's a couple things that you have to do. And then you sew it on. Now, the best tip I've had for sewing it on, I'm using red dot here. I don't recommend red dot. I'm doing that to make it easier for you to see it. But what I recommend is a simple dryer sheet. Okay, so you put a dryer sheet in the dryer. It comes all the way, it goes in stiff, right? Comes out nice and soft. It put that stiff stuff somewhere on your clothes. We all know, right? But then when it comes out, it's a thin piece of fabric that you can put over your label and you stitch all the way around it. And then you pull it out like this. And then I get scissors and I snip it. And then I trim the seam and I clip the corners, standard sewing type thing. Turn it inside out, poke out the corners, iron it flat, but then it stays like that. And then you just put it on your rug and then you sew it. And it makes it so much easier for you to do what that is. Is it difficult to create your own template? It could be. Sonia, if you don't have the technical skills on a computer, you might draw it up on a piece of paper and ask around, see if someone in your circle can create that template for you. There's no real simple, easy way to do it. It's just, what do you want? I love the Ohio Star pattern. My old house, my kitchen floor was laid in the Ohio Star pattern. So it became sort of a signature thing for me. That's why that's there, but I'll probably always continue to use that as my little border for that. You made all the choices of finishing look easy. You make our shut-in time so much more interesting. You're welcome. Thank you. And you too, Janet. Thank you for those. That's sweet to hear. So that's label. Okay. Stitch it on your rug and you're good to go. But it ain't done till the label's there. And if you don't have anything, take a piece of muslin and a fabric marker. Put your name and whatever. The problem is with a big old marker or even a small fine cut marker, you can't get the same kind of detail that you can get from a printer, right? And most of us have an inkjet printer. So you're going to be able to do this. So that's good to go. That's it, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. We'll sail tomorrow at 2. Hook in tomorrow at 4, and then I'll be back on Monday with another lesson here on YouTube. In the meantime, if you're interested in replays or more courses, you're going to head on over to howtorugcook.com. And I think I saw a question about how do we register for the online workshops. First off, the people inside the Rug Cooking Journey who are members will get an email with an invitation to join those. And it'll be just a matter of managing that. I'm not exactly sure how it's going to work out. So I'm going to have to think on that for a little while. And then I'll be sending that information out probably in about a week. Okay? That's it, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. And be safe. And I'll see you soon.